Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, yeah, we're on one of our morning excursions. Nice walk. We decided to come down near to Tower Bridge, which I think you can kind of see just over that way. And right behind us here is a shot of the, what is that ship called? HMS?
HMS Belfast.
Belfast. So we're just here, but and this is like some little grotto kind of cave type thing they set up, like Santa's grotto. And it's got some kind of ivy type stuff, and anyway, the view is nice. It's out of the elements, under cover, under shelter. And we're here to do one thing and one thing only, and that is read Bhagavatam.
Yay.
Haribol! Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Right, it's Canto 3, Chapter 31, Text 13. I'm just, I don't normally do these things. Someone might come and tell us off.
Well, you can't see, but we're sitting on like a bench that's raised off the ground.
And it's moving.
Only because I'm moving my legs. Which she said there's an old wives' tale that if you swing your legs when you sit like this, then you reduce the duration of your mother's life.
Yeah.
If anyone's heard that, you can share in the comments, or if you know the origin. I've yet to understand it in Sampradayic.
Well, it's from my mum's Sampradayic.
I see, yes. Okay.
Alright, Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay.
Alright, text 13. I, the pure soul, appearing now bound by my activities, am lying in the womb of my mother by the arrangement of Maya. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him who is also here with me, but who is unaffected and changeless. He is unlimited, but he is perceived in the repentant heart. To him I offer my respectful obeisances. Purport. As stated in the previous verse, the Jiva soul says, I take shelter of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, constitutionally, the Jiva soul is a subordinate servitor of the Supreme Soul, the personality of Godhead. Both the Supreme Soul and the Jiva soul are sitting in the same body as confirmed in the Upanishads. They are sitting as friends, but one is suffering and the other is aloof from suffering.
Thoughts?
I think it's quite straightforward. The Jiva is trying to enjoy the material world, and the Supreme Soul, Krishna, is just witnessing and thinking, alright, like a parent that, says, okay, you just need to experience it, I guess. I can't force you. The more you force a kid, or like, don't do this, they're going to do it. Alright. Allow it, let you get burnt, then you know. Thing is, we keep getting burnt, but we don't learn. We're like pigs that get roasted. We just turn to the other side and let that bit burn.
Okay, next paragraph. In this verse it is said, Vishudam avikadam akandabodam. The Supersoul is always sitting apart from all contamination. The living entity is contaminated and suffering because he has a material body, but that does not mean that because the Lord is also within him, he also has a material body. What was yours say?
Vikaram. He also has a material body.
He also has a material body. Okay, hold on. Oh, the Lord's sakes. He also has mine has an I, a material body. He is avikadam, changeless. He is always the same supreme, but unfortunately the Mayavadi philosophers, because of their impure hearts, cannot understand that the Supreme Soul, the Super Soul, is different from the individual soul. It is said here, Attapyamana Hridaye Vasitam. He is in the heart of every living entity, but he can be realized only by a soul who is repentant. The individual soul becomes repentant that he forgot his constitutional position, wanted to become one with the Supreme Soul, and tried his best to lord it over material nature. He has been baffled, and therefore he is repentant. At that time, Super Soul, or the relationship between the Super Soul and the individual soul, is realized. As it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, after many, many births, the knowledge comes to the conditioned soul that Vasudeva is great. He is master, and he is Lord. The individual soul is the servant, and therefore he surrenders unto him. At that time, he becomes a Mahatma, a great soul. Therefore, a fortunate living being who comes to this understanding, even within the womb of his mother, has his liberation assured. Wow. Yeah, all for me made real sense until the end. Therefore, a fortunate living being who comes to this understanding, even within the womb of his mother, has his liberation assured. But my understanding is that Lord Kapila Dev is explaining the consciousness of more or less every living entity in the womb, right? So for that statement at the end to be made seems to either imply that Kapila Dev isn't talking about every living entity, he's only talking about those who are due to be liberated, or it means that basically every soul has their liberation assured, ultimately, which I guess either could be correct, but the second one seems to be true, because we're all Jivara Swarupur Krishnara Nichadas, we're all eternally Krishna's servants, but it certainly isn't 100% guaranteed that all of them will attain liberation, freedom from entanglement in material energy in this life. So, any thoughts? If you have any thoughts or comments, please share them in the comments box. We'd be knowing about that. But yeah, yeah, I think the main focus here is on the fact that the soul and the super soul are distinctly different. One is the Supreme Lord, and one is a part and parcel expansion of the Supreme Lord. They're both actually expansions of the Supreme Lord. The super soul is Paramatma, expansion of Shiradakshai Vishnu. But one is Vishnu Tattva and the other is Jiva Tattva. And if that confused you, then let us know in the comments. Trying to get some crowd interaction, participation here.
They do, they interact, and I can respond to all the comments as well.
I know. You're very good like that. Thank you.
Big shout out to Dawn and Sally. But everyone else, Ronnie, Sri Devi, and also we have a lot of new viewers as well that are commenting.
Nice. Thank you. Keep commenting. We like it. Interaction. Next.
6:14. I am separated from the Supreme Lord because of my being in this material body, which is made of 5 elements, and therefore my qualities and senses are being misused, although I am essentially spiritual. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental to material nature and the living entity, is because he is devoid of such a material body, and because he is always glorious in his spiritual qualities, I offer my obeisances unto him. The difference between the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is that the living entity is prone to be subjected to material nature, whereas the Supreme Godhead is always transcendental to material nature, as well as to the living entities. When the living entity is put into material nature, then his senses and qualities are polluted or designated. There is no possibility for the Supreme Lord to become embodied by material qualities or material senses, for he is above the influence of material nature and cannot possibly be put in the darkness of ignorance like the living entities. Because of his full knowledge, he is never subjected to the influence of material nature. Material nature is always under his control. And it is therefore not possible that material nature can control the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we understand there that material nature is under the control of Krishna. And like we were saying, even if you study just the material energy or material world, or whatever you want to call it, Mother Nature, that in itself, I do 100% believe will bring you to a humbling position of there is some, like a brain behind all this. There is some law and order behind this. I can't believe that people just can't look at the seasons and how life just comes and goes at different times. Now we're seeing everything is closing up, and then all of a sudden you'll get like little buds and springs coming, just the way the structure of a leaf, even in the veins and how it's growing, it's just pretty amazing actually. And yet that is Krishna's energy, and he calls it his inferior energy. So that's quite actually amazing.
Yeah, most people though, they see those things and they just think it's nature and science, and I would say, I don't know, most, a lot anyway. So it's incredible how two people can look at the same thing and see completely differently. One sees completely the absence of God, and the other sees completely the presence of God. So that's there, But I guess more and more we need to really try to see the presence of God. That's what we would say. Of course, a scientist would say that's silly. You should see that God isn't present. It's just nature. It's just science. It's just chemicals doing what chemicals do, I guess, sort of thing.
But that should scare people more, because that means there's something out there that our so-called scientists cannot control and actually harness, because when we see nature goes bad, it really goes bad. And they can look on their radar screens and they can look on their maps and that, but no one could have predicted all these, like that tsunami, was it 2006, the big tsunami, and all these earthquakes and this. We can, when nature wants to unfurl, she just does that, and you think, well, if I'm going to put my faith in you scientists and atheists, then you better deliver. But you can't, because you can just look at it from afar with your faulty tools, meaning your own senses, limited. All right.
I did have a thought, but I can't remember it now.
Okay.
Okay, so next paragraph, still verse 14. Since the identity of the living entity is very minute, he is prone to be subjected to material nature. But when he is freed from this material body, which is false, he attains the same spiritual nature as the Supreme Lord. At that time, there is no qualitative difference between him and the Supreme Lord. But because he is not so quantitatively powerful as to never be put under the influence of material nature, he is quantitatively different from the Lord. So real focus on the principle of qualitative and quantitative, which means that if one is qualitatively the same as something else, means that the qualities are the same, but quantifiably there is a difference between the amount that one exhibits that quality. So the Lord exhibits all qualities in completeness, whereas we are complete but in a minute form. So Prabhupada gives the example like a spark from the fire or like a drop from the ocean. Still has the same qualities but nowhere near in the same quantity.
Final paragraph. The entire process of devotional service is to purify oneself of this contamination of material nature and put oneself on the spiritual platform, where he is qualitatively one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Vedas, it is said that the living entity is always free. Asango he ayam purusha. The living entity is liberated. His material contamination is temporary, and his actual position is that he is liberated. This liberation is achieved by Krishna consciousness, which begins from the point of surrender. Therefore, it is said here, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Person. Yeah, interesting point that the entire process of devotional service is just to purify ourselves and put us on the process, or put us on the path of just... Hold on, my mic's doing something funny. Of just worshipping Krishna. My mic was... And we were just talking about this when we were walking over here, that it's very easy to, like we were listening to our morning class, and it's easy to get distracted by things maybe that you don't need to get distracted by, and question why these people dress like this or why these do that. And maybe it's when we have, time to move away from the path, as it were, because we're not focused on the path, that we get focused on all the other little nitty-gritties that ain't so important. Because this whole business of self-realization is a full-time distraction in itself.
Full-time distraction from what?
All the nitty-gritties.
Yeah,
My point being, there's distractions where if you want distractions, the material world will give them to you. So this is a positive distraction.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Which is usually known as an attraction. Not distraction.
Well, it's a distraction from the
material, and it's an attraction to the spiritual, right?
Yes, that's not what I mean. It's a distraction nonetheless, because I'm distracting myself.
From what?
The material.
Yes. Yin and yang. And I say we should be naturally attracted to the spiritual, so therefore it's an attraction to the spiritual, and we are being distracted from the material, which is what she's saying.
No, yeah, anyway. But we beg to differ.
I think we beg to be the same, but just say it in different ways. Okay, anyway, we definitely beg to finish right now.
Yes.
Before it gets too wild and crazy and we start really disagreeing with each other.
Yes.
People keep walking by and looking in the window.
I know. They're like, what are they doing?
Okay, so we're going to finish here. Thank you very much. Please read the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
And go deeper in your spiritual life and either become attracted to Krishna or distracted from the material energy, whichever it is. But do that. Any closing words?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.